Howdy folks, so today I'm working with a tool called Handycam. This is a plugin for Adobe After Effects that makes working with 3D cameras a lot more easy and a lot more fun. I really do use it a lot when creating map animations, so I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive here. This is going to be a long tutorial. I'm going to show you how it works, give you a really in-depth look at all the parameters, and then I'm going to create a few sample animations. If you do like Handycam and you want to pick up a copy, please use my affiliate link down in the video description. Affiliate sales and Patreon are two of the main ways that I support my channel. Big shout out to my tier 3 patrons, Tyson the Keymaster, Samara Mahdi, Joseph Culligan, Mike and Sandra over at YouTube at Flumi+1, and Josh. Thanks again folks for making this video possible. So I've created this Ultra HD 4K comp here inside of Adobe After Effects, and I have this big beautiful map that I've downloaded. I'm actually working on a freelance gig right now, and I need to create a few animations using this map. I'll leave you a link, so if you want to download this particular image, you can go do that. I think it's on Wikipedia. And if you look, it's really high resolution. So if I zoom in here, you can see there's a ton of detail, and that's what I want to be able to do, is fly my camera around and see all those beautiful details up close. So if you look at the preview panel here, you can see the resolution is 10,600 pixels by nearly 5,000. I suggest you find something with a high enough resolution that is going to allow you to get in up close and not get pixelated and look too crappy. One good place to look for maps is the David Rumsey collection, or you can check out Library of Congress. Both of those sources, specifically David Rumsey, has a lot of cool old maps that are really high resolutions. So now to use Handycam, first we got to bring our layer into the comp here. You can see how big this is. Now I'm going to right click on this and simply transform fit to comp height so that I can see much of the map here. And now I'm going to set it to a 3D layer. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. So if you're having problems, check that. If you can't see those switches, just toggle this little button right here. Okay, so to apply the Handycam effect, you need to apply it on a null object. So I'm going to go right click, new, null object. Before you set up Handycam, you want to figure out like what area of the map do I want to focus on, because once you apply the effect, and all the orbit controls are going to go around that null, it's going to center that area of the null to the middle of the comp. You can always switch it, but it can be a little finicky in orbit, but it's like strangely after the fact. So I like to get it set up on one specific area. So let's say that I want to do a zoom out move from this little castle here. So I'm going to grab my null object, and I'm going to make sure the anchor point's like roughly centered over that. It's kind of over here to the left. So now I'm going to go to the effects and presets panel, and I've already installed this. So over here I have a plugin everything section. Right here's Handycam. By the way, everything that plugin everything creates is amazing. So go check out these other ones. I'll leave affiliate links down in the video description for these other ones. I use Deep Glow all the time. I use it too much, but it's amazing. I'm going to grab Handycam and drop it over the null, and now it brings up all these cool parameters here, but you got to click setup first. You have to click setup, or otherwise it won't work. So the two big steps are turn your layer to 3D and click setup after you apply Handycam. Now this project's set up. We have a Handycam camera, we have a Handycam controller, it renamed our null, and we have our map here. So one thing that I like to do is I like to shy the actual camera control, or I like to shy the camera, because sometimes I'll accidentally grab it and we don't need to do anything. All the work is done in the null controller here. A quick note here is the purpose of Handycam is to make working with 3D cameras in Adobe After Effects a little more user-friendly, because they are quite clunky. Having all the parameters and adjustment things you have to adjust buried in the actual layer and having to navigate down there is a little annoying. So this is a great way to use these cameras. However, this can still be clunky the first or second day that you're using it. It takes a little bit of practice to get comfortable with it. At least it did for me. I don't have much experience in like 3D programs. If you're coming from a 3D program, it might be easy, but just be aware of that. So one thing that I like to do, just so you can see what's going on, because sometimes it's easy to get lost, you might not know what a parameter is doing, I switch my comp view to 2 views, and then on the left side here, I like to switch around between different views. So right now this is set to left, but you can switch it to top, and you're going to be able to see what the camera is doing as you're making adjustments. So let me show you what I'm talking about, and it really does help. So let me switch this back to left, and then on the right side of the screen I just have active camera. As I orbit, check this out. So here we have X orbit. This is just going to kind of pitch the layer up or down. I have Y orbit. And again, look over here to see what the camera's doing. Here we have it moving left to right. And it's focusing on the target here. And then we have Z orbit. That's just going to rotate this. Super, super cool. Then you have a little advanced section down here. I wouldn't mess with this unless you really know what you're doing, because it's just something having to do with gimbal order. So if you're professional, go ahead. If you're not, just leave it alone. Okay, the next group of parameters is look at. This allows you to select a target. So I could actually have multiple null objects on my layer here and then parent them to my map and then quickly switch that. So if I toggle, or if I drop down the little menu here, you're gonna see I have none, and then I have the actual layer, and I have this null object. So you can target that to whatever you want. And then over here you have like the mask and effects. So if I set it to, so just watch this. If I go over here and we do like a top-down view, if I go back to the Handycam controller and I switch the look at target to there, you're gonna see that it moves my camera to look at the center now. So you can see it's looking at the center. In fact, if I zoom this in and just move it here, as I switch that target, check it out. Castle, center of the layer. So we'll keep it on castle there. So it's very useful, and I'll show you in an example a little bit later how we can use that. You can offset the target as well. So right here you have X, Y, and Z controls to offset that target, which is super helpful if you want to do like a pan or a tilt move into your actual target. It's super helpful. And you can actually use this little crosshair right here. It allows you to manually pick the offset. So I can come over here to this little center here, and now it's going to be centered there, and you can see the little target there. Under here you have local transform. So think of this as like, these are your camera moves. If you're a cinematographer, they have the cinematographer lingo down here: truck, pedestal, and dolly. So truck is when you move left to right. Again, pay attention to the left side here to really see what's going on. As they move this, this is basically going to move the camera on the x-axis. And notice that it's not sticking the point of interest to the target. So it's very important to remember that. Here we're going to pedestal the camera, which is basically moving it up and down. And here we can dolly, the famous dolly move. Now if you want to move the camera and not lose that target, you can use position offset. So here, as I move X, check it out, it's staying on target. It's actually rotating the whole map. This is a quick way to create a camera move. So I could just animate the X and Y of the position offset, and it's going to give me this cool flyover. Now it automatically, you'll see the Z is set to like a huge number, like -5,000. So when you set up Handycam, it automatically, like mathematically, puts your camera on in Z space this way. So if I were to zero this out, so be aware that if you reset this, if I were to hit reset, it's going to zero out this Z, and it basically puts your camera right on top of your like actual target there, so you have to back it off. So this is like, you could do you could use this, the Z parameter here, to do like zoom out moves. What is going on here? Over here you have your lens controls, so you can quickly enable depth of field. This is one of the biggest features of this. This is what I use all the time, specifically for like Johnny Harris. He when he's not using geo layers, he uses this a lot. In fact, he sent me a tutorial like a custom-made tutorial showing me how to do a lot of the things he likes to do inside of Handycam, which is super cool. So I can enable the depth of field. As soon as I do that, look over here. Now we have this little line. This is our focus. So if I move the focus distance, that's going to move. So if I start to bump up the aperture in the blur, you'll see it's going to blur out my map. So how do we get that to like match up with the actual layer? Well, we have a focus layer here, and you can just select the Handycam controller, and that's amazing because now when you fly around, you're doing all these crazy moves, that focus is going to be locked right on target. It's always going to stay there. So to really see that, I'm going to, let's do position offset again. Let's zoom in on the map a little bit. So we'll zoom in on the map, and where the depth of field really starts to look cool is where, and you can see right now, look, it's locked on, is it when I start to orbit it. So if I orbit here, which I don't even need to do orbit, I can do offset, I can offset the Y, and then I can offset the X like this, and then we should start to see some cool fall off here of, and I'll push this in even more. And there you go. Now you can see I've got some cool fall off here. Over here, this castle up here is definitely falling off into like a blur over here. So I could really crank this up. Let's see what like 250 looks like, the blur level. So you could really get an idea of what that like focus line is. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it back down like 150 so we can still strong enough to where you can see what's going on. Focus length is written in millimeters here, and think of this as like a zoom lens. It's basically taking your camera out to like, the lower that number is, the more wide angle you're gonna have, and the higher that number is, the more telephoto you're gonna have. So watch, if I zoom out here on this view, watch what happens to my camera as I mess with focal length. So here we're getting like a wide angle camera, wide angle, wide angle, wide angle, and then I can go real telephoto here. A lot of times if you're doing like map flyovers, some telephoto, like little telephoto looks will look pretty good. It'll allow you to keep all the map in frame and it won't get it all distorted in wide angle. There's a little dolly zoom button in here as well, and this is going to allow you to, like, if you go really wide, basically what this is going to do is going to give you that Hitchcock effect, which I don't think it really does much on this. I don't know how useful it is for just a 2D layer. If you've ever seen that shot, the famous shot from like Jaws in the Steven Spielberg film, for example, when like what is his name, Chief Brody, sees the shark for the first time attacking a kid or something, they do that crazy dolly in, and it compresses. They do the dolly zoom where it compresses the background, like the background comes in and looks like he's crushing in on him. So we'll keep this at 60, and we don't want to do a dolly zoom. And then you have wiggle controls as well. So if you just want to throw a little wiggle in there, you know, bump these up a little bit, and that's super helpful. I like to keep these really low, like maybe at like a 2. Utility, there's a bunch of cool little effects down here. You can bake the expressions, and what that's going to allow you to do is just turn all your expressions into keyframes, so that if you're working with another animator, you want to send this project off to someone else, they won't have to have the Handycam plugin to work with your project. You can also duplicate the rig, which is super helpful. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. Okay, so it's time to create a few animations here. Let's say for this first one, we just want to do like a flying zoom out from this close-up and have a full wide angle of the map, and I want it to be centered in the comp. So I'll open up position offset, and any of these parameters that I changed, I didn't change the orbit at all. And I'll go ahead and add keyframes to all of these because I know that's where I want this particular animation to start. And now let's go to maybe go to like the 2-second mark, and let's go ahead and zero out all these position offsets and see what happens. I think if we just zero these out and then push this back, okay, there we go. And now we have the problem of we want to be centered up here, so I can actually change, not this, we're going to do a truck move. And before I do that, I want to actually add a keyframe to that, and then I'll hit U again because I want to see all the keyframes. And this will be the beginning position. So right here, this is our beginning position, and then all the way out here is our final position. And now I'll adjust the truck to move that until basically this little sundial, I don't know the name of it, I know there's a specific name for it, but basically we want that to be right in the middle. So I'm going to look at title and action save so I can see some crosshairs here. All right, over here, you can hold the control key to do real fine-tune adjustments. Okay, so something like that. And now let's look at this full view here. So you can create so many animations just by using the position offset because it's going to automatically orbit around your target. It's kind of a great way to work if you want to create some quick animations. And I'm going to leave it here. And now I can just go and quickly add some, easy ease to these and then tweak them in the graph editor a little bit. I really need to learn some new animation techniques because I always do the same thing. And I'm actually just going to have it, let's have it whip. Let's have it start out a little bit slow and then whip. Okay, so there's animation number 1. You saw how quick that was. Pretty much it was mostly position offset. I did the little truck move. Now I'm going to unshy this. Let's create another animation. So the best way to go about this is to duplicate the rig. So I'm going to go over here, and at the bottom under utility I can say duplicate rig, and that creates a whole new Handycam controller with the Handycam camera. Now a lot of people think that they can just copy both the camera and the controller and then paste them, but these are all linked together via expressions. If you do that, your duplicate will not work, so you have to use the duplicate rig button. The way that this works, like the render order, it's always going to be that the active camera is the camera on top. So I'll show you what I'm talking about once we create our second animation. So let's real quick go and grab Handycam Controller 2, which is going to be our second animation. We're going to change, I'm going to hit U to view the keyframes here, and instead of zooming out, I'm going to delete all these keyframes, and I'm going to delete the truck. We don't want to truck it at all. And I'm just going to go over here to 4 seconds. And let's say that we just want to kind of like glide over it here. So I'm just making these subtle adjustments. And I'll turn the easy ease off here just to just have this kind of like a solid movement. There's no ease in and ease out. Okay, so there's animation number 2. Okay, so how can I see animation 1? Well, all I need to do is grab the controller and the camera of Handycam animation 1 and bring it to the top. And the active camera will always pick what's at the top. So that's what's going to render out. If I want animation 2, I just go back here and drop this on top. Very, very cool. So there we go, 2 animations real quick. Okay, so I know this tutorial is already very long. I'm going to make it much longer. This is probably going to go over 30 minutes. But I want to show you how to do a little bit more of an intricate animation here, because I do a lot of animations with routes where I'll do like a path and the path's moving along, and sometimes you want that camera to stick to the path and have it fly around. That's what I'm going to be creating in this particular animation. So there's a cool way to go about this. Right here, let's say I'm animating a path from Portugal over here. It's going to go around Africa, and it's going to go all the way over here to India. So I'm going to go grab the pen tool, make sure that I deselect my map, and I have a stroke of 5 here. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to zoom in, and what I'm going to do is just kind of real quick draw out. Let's say we're going to go over here to these islands, then we're going to loop around to these islands, and I'm just drawing out this path with some nice Bezier handles to make it, make it smooth. I could probably make that smoother, but whatever. Now I'm going to rename this route, and I'm going to make it 3D. I'm going to go ahead and parent that to the map, and the reason that I do this is sometimes I'll actually animate the actual map, so I want everything to stick to the map. Now be aware that if you do decide to make animations to the map and you're duplicating that rig, you're going to have some different looking animations, so just be aware of that. Okay, so I have the route. Now what I want to do is I want to actually, you know that with Handycam, you can have the camera automatically lock to a null object. So I want to take a null object and have it animate along the path here. Now there's a tool called Create Nulls from Paths that allows you to trace the path and automatically puts a null, automatically animates it on there. But when you're working in 3D with that particular tool, it can get a little finicky. You got to change the expression and weird things can happen. So what I like to do is I have this route selected, and as long as I don't scale it or do anything, now I can just add a new null object. And the way that I can kind of get this on the path is I'll go to the route and I'll do a keyword search for path. I'm going to select the path and I'm going to add a keyframe, and then simply copy the keyframe and then open up the position of the null. And it's important that we want the null to start at the beginning of our path here. This is the beginning of our route. So I need to make sure that it's snapped right to here. And to snap it, I need to make sure it's set to 3D first. And then I'm going to grab with the cursor kind of up here in the top left. I'm going to hold Control, and then you'll see it snapped right to there. I love that. So you can snap to the edge, and then you can actually snap to the path here. I'm going to make sure you select by the corner there. There we go. And now if I go to Position, and I bring my playhead to the beginning, and I just paste that path that I copied, check it out. Now I've got these keyframes here, these position keyframes. And this is so cool because look over here at the actual keyframes. You have 2 keyframes, and all the ones in between are essentially these vertices that I drew. Those are set as roving keyframes. So if I grab this last keyframe, check it out, you can see my null object moving. So I can real quickly animate the duration without having to move a bunch of keyframes. And I can even add some easy ease to these and Bezier handles, and those roving keyframes are just going to move along with it. It's really great. So we have this, and now what we're going to do is we're going to add the Handycam to this particular null. I have FX Console installed, so I'll add Handycam this way. And then I'm going to go ahead and set it up, and now watch what happens. Now we've already got an animation here on our Handycam controller. It's not looking great, but you can see that our camera is following our animated null. So now I can go into Handycam and just tweak some things here. So let's go to position offset. We want it to be much closer. So I'm going to zoom it in. So something like this maybe. And now we see, oh, it's going, but it's way too fast. So let me hit U, and I'm going to actually, I'm going to hit Control K, and I'm going to make this animation a lot longer, something like 30 seconds, because I want it to move very, very slowly. So grab all these layers, go to the end, extend them out, extend the work area out, and now I'm going to grab this last keyframe and check it out. I can make this animation go for 30 seconds. Now we're going to be slowly cruising around the route. There we go, that's looking much better. Now the reason it's so jittery is because I have my preview set to, if you go to the preview panel, I have it set to skip 5 and quarter resolution, so that's why it's looking like that. So now it's just a matter of kind of maneuvering this camera around, so I can have it like if I adjust if I adjust X and Y here, it's going to pivot this as I move around. So you could, once again, you can just animate these 3 if you want and get a good look from your start to finish. So maybe we want to be looking up at the beginning here, and then we can just animate these 3, and then, you know, it's kind of flying around. And let's say over here, we want to be looking even more up. And then by the end, let's say we want to be looking like down. We want it to pivot down, and we want to look kind of this way. Yeah, all the way back. And maybe even zoomed in a little bit. Yeah, so we want to zoom in. And now we're getting this cool animation. Now I just need to do some fine tuning. Like I can come to the route, and I'll go to the stroke option here, and I'll add some dashes. We can make them like little circles, put a gap in there. And what you can do is you can add an expression to offset. I do this all the time. And you type in the expression time, and then I'm going to do times -50 maybe. And that's going to automatically just use time to move this. Now I'll go back down to lens, and I will add, enable the depth of field, set the focus layer to the Handycam controller, and maybe bump up this. And again, we'll add a little bit of a wiggle to give it that handheld look so that it's not always like locked specifically on the route. Okay, so there you have it. That is Handycam for Adobe After Effects. Naturally, this last animation could use a lot of tweaks and I could make it a lot better, but this is a really, really good start. And as you can probably see, this is not only great for map animations, but it's great for any time you want to use a 3D camera in Adobe After Effects. Once again, I highly suggest you go check it out, and if you do want to pick it up, please use my affiliate link, which is down in the video description. I would really appreciate that. Again, my Patreon page and my affiliate sales are 2 of the main revenue streams that help me support this channel and keep it going. So thank you very much. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, share this video with your friends. If you want to learn more about map animations, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, or go check out my Monday Maps playlist. Or if you're a super fan, go check out Patreon. See ya.